everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Against All Odds. And as I say at the beginning of every podcast, the guests are personal choice to me, purely selfish, because I get to speak to all these inspirational people. And today is no exception. So I'd love to introduce to Chris Ganley, who is an amazing person. I've watched his story, and it's so against the odds that I had to get him on. So welcome, Chris.
You're right. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, just trying to recover the best that I can from doing weird and wonderful things.
You are a very busy man. I'm seeing you everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell everybody at home. So you race motorbikes with one arm.
Yes.
Right.
So and there's also a few other things that go along with that as well.
Right.
So my right arm should have been amputated as well. So I've got lack of movement in my right arm.
Right.
I also got told I'll never walk again because I broke my back in 3 places, severe
Wow.
bleed to my brain, and a lot of nerve damage down my left-hand side of the body as well.
Right. So how
Yeah.
did that happen? Because you was in the army, but it didn't happen in the army, did it? Or did it? I'm not sure.
I was serving at the time,
Oh,
but
right.
it was while I was on leave.
Right.
I had a road traffic accident on a motorbike, and it wasn't like it was quick. It was just right place, right time.
Right.
And in the process, I ended up in an induced coma for over a week, and then woke up to my life being changed.
Blimey. How did you deal with that because I mean that's one hell of a trauma and a life change to deal with. So like in the early days, how was it then?
While I was still in hospital, it was all I wanted to do was get out of the bed. But I kept getting told get back in it. Because I didn't realize I broke my back at that point, and they couldn't believe that I kept getting out of bed. I think while I was still in hospital, I didn't really understand the grand scheme of everything and understand the height of it. Because I was getting looked after, I suppose, I never really understood it until I came out of hospital. But I knew that I lost my life, I lost my career, I lost everything that I stood for, and I didn't know what to do. So that was when I started giving myself an idea of what I needed to do when I get out. So I then started planning for what I could still potentially do from my last life onwards, and that
Right.
was my saving grace. So while I was still in hospital, I was already coming up with ways of being able to adapt my motorbike, because I was about to race for the army at the time, and I still wanted to carry my racing on. But it wasn't until I got out of hospital I then started having the realization. So for example, when I was finally allowed to leave, I came home and I went to go and put the recycling out, and it was the weirdest thing that caught me out. It was when I went to the back gate with the recycling bin, and I went to open the back gate, which had the 2 locks on it. One was at the top, one was at the bottom, and I've always opened it with both hands. And
Yeah.
I naturally went to reach for it, and that made me break down. And because I broke down that bad, that also made me think about what I needed to do later on as well. So it was very hard to begin with, but it was those little things that actually encouraged me to do more the next time.
Yeah.
Even making a coffee or
Yeah.
anything like that. I just saw it as a challenge rather than it being a hindrance.
Yeah. That's quite a mindset because, it's like for Ben, for instance, he's not been able to use his arm since birth. So he's never had that experience of using 2 arms. But as an adult, to lose a limb, like we're used to doing things 2-handed, so it is a complete kind of change of life, and having to relearn how to do the most simplest stuff with one hand, it's
Yeah.
quite difficult.
To be honest, it's the simple things that I find the hardest.
Yeah.
all the things that should be hard, I find easier.
Yeah,
Like, for example, I would prefer to go out into the garage and take my engine out of my motorbike than try and butter toast.
yeah, yeah.
It's
It
really
is.
weird.
It's right. You are. It is the little things. So I've set myself a challenge to have a day of just using one arm just to see what it was like with Ben. And it was
Yeah.
like even like doing a zip up
Yeah,
because of
yeah, yeah.
course you have to hold it, and you don't, when you're using two hands, you don't even realise that you're using two hands until you try and do it with one.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
It's very, very hard.
yeah. Well, the thing is, it does remind me, like, when I was back in the days of serving, I mean, um, uh, we always had those conversations about, oh, if anything was gonna happen and you were gonna lose something, what would you prefer to lose? And you would have some guys saying, "Oh, my left leg," or if I was going to lose anything, it would be my right leg. And I actually always remembered saying, "Actually, I don't know, maybe your left arm because it doesn't do much." And this just feels like real karma.
Yeah, no, you should have said that.
Yeah,
You
I
should
should
not
have said
have said
something
that.
else.
So how did you make the kind of, so you'd obviously got a passion for motorbikes anyway.
Yes.
How did you get into the mindset of getting back on a bike though? Because one, you must have had that fear of the accident that happened, and you're lacking a limb as well. So how did you get
So,
over?
well, it was one of those when I actually thought about it logically. Bear in mind, I was meant to be in hospital for 6 months, and I was out in 3.5 weeks, and a week
Mm,
of that was in a coma. Now, within those 3.5 weeks, I already planned how I was going to change my bike, and I know what happened in when the accident happened, and I know it will never happen again.
right.
Um, so when I was getting back to the bike, I already knew that this is what I want to try. And to be perfectly honest, I did go with the mindset that I might not like it.
Yeah.
So I still had the idea that I just need to try it because if I wouldn't want to go 20 years down the road and then go, you know what, it's about time, I'll give it a go, and then find out that I've missed the last 20 years. So I
Yeah.
thought I needed to try it now because if I don't, I won't know. Um, so I actually got back on my bike in 6 months from the injury, and that
Wow.
was me stripping it and rebuilding it. And then I took it to the bike garage down the road, and that was only because I was still on a lot of medication. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I saw like unicorns come out the exhaust and everything. So I think trying to ride it after that was probably not the best idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I took it down to them and just said, "Look, can you just check it over for me?" And they did actually um, have a look at some of the things that I've done and the ideas I've had, and they changed it slightly to make it easier. And when I went to go back to pick the bike up, they did tell me not to ride the bike home because I literally live like a 30-second walk away from them. And they
Right.
told me not to ride at home because if anything happens, the fingers will be pointed at them. But
Right.
they all knew full well I was going to ride it. So they ended up waiting. They, as soon as I paid for everything and I walked to the bike, they were all stood outside watching. And by the time that I actually got home, I already had a message from the owner. And he even said, he goes, the way that you pulled that bike away looked like there was nothing wrong. He said, you pulled it away better than the majority of the people that pick up their own bikes.
Wow.
And that's when I said, well, I need to get on a track day. And he said he was going to take me. And because I had the brain injury, I wasn't allowed to drive. So
Right.
he took me to the circuit and went out with me on the circuit. I think it was either nine months after or 10 months after. And there was fear. There was fear of falling off. There was also fear of not succeeding. There was a lot of things. Um, but it's really, really bizarre. Of all the things that could have happened, I went out. I think I did 3 corners and I fell off and I hit
Right.
the floor. And as soon as I hit the floor, I started laughing. And I went, that wasn't that bad. And then when I actually jumped back onto the bike, I didn't have the fear.
Yeah.
It was like that little worry. I just hit the floor, got up, walked off, had a laugh, and it took that fear away.
Yeah.
And then when I went out again after that, I started annoying people. Just started going past people. And then I started realizing actually this isn't as bad as what I thought it would be. I
Yeah.
knew that was just the whole getting back on the bike, and there's been a lot of changes, and every time I get quicker I find more and more problems. But that to me, as soon as I did that, I knew that was there was no fear there anymore, not for what I was looking for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we kind of overestimate where fear's based. We can like everything's bigger, everything's more frightening. And then when we face the fear and then we
Yeah.
go, do you know what, it wasn't that bad. That's where your
No.
confidence starts to grow, isn't it? And
Yes.
you found
Yeah.
your confidence, didn't you?
Yeah. 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 I ended up doing even more stupid things after that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you are winning in so much at the moment, aren't you? So we spoke before the podcast. So you're the first arm amputee in racing, aren't you?
Not in racing overall.
Not in racing.
This is to the height of racing.
Right. Okay.
So, in club racing, there's been a lot of amputees, like arm amputees and leg amputees within club racing.
Right.
I also know that there are a few of them that are probably maybe a little bit quicker than me.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm the first arm amputee to ever make it to a support race in a support class within British Superbikes, and I managed a support race in World Superbikes, and I believe that I'm the first one for the World Superbikes. Um, I'm also the first one-armed. In fact, I think I am the first disabled racer to go around Aberdare Park, which is nicknamed the Welsh TT,
Wow.
which is a road race. And if I am, I'm going on think rather than fact. So
Yeah.
if I am
Yeah.
wrong, I would like to know.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I'm the first arm amputee ever to make it to Oliver's Mount, which is another national road racing championship as well.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's impressive. That really is impressive because it takes guts to kind of be the first in anything, I
yeah,
think. Would you
yes,
agree with that? Yeah.
yes. Because when I did it last year, that was one fear that I had that I took out on track with me. I
Yeah.
went out on the basis I had to see the checkered flags. So whatever
Yeah.
happened, I needed to see the checkered flags
Hmm.
because if I am the first, if everything goes wrong, I could be quickly the last as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So yeah, it
it's a
was a bit.
a big responsibility on your shoulders right there.
Yeah, I think I won them over, so it's all right.
Yeah, yeah. Just out of interest, when you was like, right, I'm going to get back on the bike and I'm going to start racing. Were your family just like going, "Are you mad?" Did you have anybody like close to you going, "No, no, 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 they shouldn't be doing this"?
um, I know they thought it, but they didn't want to tell me.
Yeah,
One of my family members did, and he got incredibly discriminative, which
yeah,
is why I basically told him to do one in the end. Um, but yeah, not yeah. But the problem is there is only a couple of ways around this. Um, I lost everything, and it's the only thing that I could carry on.
yeah.
And to be perfectly honest, after I did the track day, I bought one of the dream bikes I've always wanted, and I actually only bought it to ride it into a wall. So
Right.
I ended up calling it Shinigami because I actually got onto it, and yeah, I didn't want to hurt it. Yeah, I didn't want to hurt her. So I basically called her Shinigami on the basis she's going to be my Grim Reaper.
Right. Okay.
And um, it was the only thing that kept me going was literally doing the mechanics on the bikes and just trying to keep my mind focused. But also I was quite suicidal, to be honest.
Yeah,
And the biking was the reason why I didn't. So I think my family members knew that if they tried to take that away,
yeah,
what would they be left with?
yeah.
They got the choice of me being on bikes or me not being here, because that would be literally where it goes. So
That's it, isn't it? I'm a big believer in that everybody needs a purpose and a
yeah,
passion. I'm a big believer in that, and I do think we don't do well without that, and especially when you've been through a life challenge, that passion and purpose is the thing that pulls you through.
yeah,
You often find that people will go, oh, we shouldn't be doing that because it's their own limitations. They're trying to put themselves in your position, and they'll be going, oh, well, I wouldn't be doing that. Doesn't mean that you should be doing that. So I find it's that kind of mentality.
I just find that weird because I've had a lot of those comments, but I find half of that's jealousy.
Yeah,
The fact that
yeah,
I'm missing bits and I'm better at biking than some of them.
yeah,
So they don't want
absolutely.
me to do it because they can't do it.
Yeah, yeah. So when you it just spurs you on every time you do really well. Are you right, what's the next thing?
Pretty much. Yeah, I keep looking at my lap times. They're getting better every single time I go out. Apart from this weekend, but that was issues with the bike. But I need to go quicker. I need to go
Right,
quicker. I need to see where I can take this
yeah,
because I want to see where my limit is,
yeah.
because limits are only ones you give yourself. And at this point in time, I haven't found a limit, because if I have, I'd be plateauing, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
still going quicker every single time. So I
yeah,
just want to see how far I can go, and I want to set a record for someone to beat. I want
yeah,
someone to come behind me in similar positions and beat what I've done, because I'm not setting the world on fire. All I'm doing is just setting a target for the next person that wants to come into my shoes.
yeah. And that's it. Like you are sorting your own limitations out, not what's slapped on you. And I love that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
I really love that mindset, because everything you said about limitations, absolutely spot on. And a lot of people live by limitations, and you're just, sod this. I'm going to
yeah,
give it a go. It's a one powerful mindset. It
yeah.
it really,
I
really is.
I just still think I'm too stupid to give up, to be honest.
I know. I don't think. I think do you know what? Some people would say it's stubborn, but I think a stubborn mindset is quite good, because it means that you are willing to try it without going, I can't do that. I don't believe in the word can't.
Yeah,
Like, I really
no, I'm
do
the
think,
same.
yeah, the language that you use to yourself and other people use to you is huge. And it's one of the things when Ben's growing up and things like that, I would never say, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. Because I didn't want him to have that limitation in that mindset.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
the thing is,
you just live
it's
by
not.
that, don't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. The thing is, I mean, it's like one thing the military always taught me was always adapt and overcome, and then you're always pushing to be the best in the field that you can be. So
Yeah,
all I'm trying to do is just adapt and overcome everything that I've been through, and I want to go and push to see how far I can take it. And I don't know, maybe it's a military mindset, maybe I had it before, because I wouldn't have gone into the military if I didn't have that mindset in the first place. So maybe I
yeah,
can thank my parents for that.
yeah,
It's yeah, and the problem is like you were saying, it's like with how you're with your son, saying, not saying you can't do it. Because think about how many children are growing up with parents saying, oh, you can't do that because you're missing that. Or you can't do that because you're missing that. Well, actually, they can do it. It just means there's just got to be a different way around it. And
yeah,
to
yeah,
be honest, it's like with one of my friends. Um, when I've done some of the work on the bikes and things, he's actually adopted the way that I do it because it's easier. Because
yeah,
I've have to find the easier way. So
Yeah,
he now has gone, actually, that's a good way of doing it. And now he's doing it one-handed instead.
that's amazing because that's it. It's like you can do it. It is purely a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just and wherever there's a will, there's a way. I'm a big believer in that,
Yes, definitely.
especially if it's passive. The one thing I have got to ask you, it's about corners, right? Going round corners, because in my head, gravity is taking over. How the hell do you get round corners fast? Does that sound like a really stupid question? It's been bugging me.
So the corners aren't the problem, it's the braking and accelerating it is.
Right,
So
okay.
when the problem is if there's quite a lot of forces that go through a bike when they're in a corner. So this is where central fugal force, central pedal force. There's also something called counter steering as well. So
Right.
basically, if you're going for a right-hand corner, you steer left, and if you go in for a left-hand corner, you steer right, and it
Mm,
drops the bike in. So depending on how you apply the pressure into the bars, and you can put pressure through leaning off the bike and carrying yourself through the corner. Um, it seems to work. The forces kind of make sense.
right.
I get round and yeah, yeah, it seems to go round a corner. Yeah.
Thank
But
God for
yeah,
that, right?
yeah. Yeah, there is a lot of things that go on in a corner. And it's one of those that whether if you've got two arms or one arm, it's the same force. And
Right.
going round a corner, it's the corner's fine. It's just when you're trying to go in on heavy braking and heavy acceleration, that's
Right.
when a corner becomes incredibly difficult. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's really difficult to explain without going really into it. Now I'm going to confuse myself anyway. Yeah.
Is it just one of them things you've got to practice and practice and practice and, like I say, fall off a few times and get back on and go, now it's got to be done a different way. It's one of them.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Oh. Do you ever have like people contacting you like that's in a similar situation where they're like, I'd love to do it, but I don't know where to start?
Yes, I've had loads, and I get them very, very often as well. And this isn't just UK based, this is worldwide.
Wow.
Um, I've helped out quite a lot of people in the States. Um, I think someone's even approached me from like Thailand, I think. Um, literally, I've been approached from so many different places with people saying that they don't know how I do it and is there a way around it? And I'll tell them exactly how I've done it, and I want to help them out, which is also the same reason why I ended up becoming a motorbike instructor. And it's
Yeah.
because I started teaching people how to build the bikes. Why don't I teach them as well?
Yeah.
So that's why I do that as my full-time job, um, while doing silly things on a weekend.
I love that because it's like you're giving people like just a passion and a purpose and a new lease of life. And it's like, you know, when I said about having the responsibility of being the first,
Yeah,
but by showing people that you can do it, that they'll go, right, maybe I can then.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. That's what I want to encourage. The thing is,
That,
it's like when people go on about disabilities and things like that, and they say that the amount of times where I've been approached and they go, "We know we know you are disabled, but do you feel disabled?" And when I actually really thought about it, surely you only actually disable yourself half the time.
yeah, yeah,
So it's like, for instance, what if you've got someone that's got nothing really wrong with them, but they can't be bothered to get out of bed in the morning? Doesn't that mean they're disabling themselves?
yeah,
Whereas I get out of bed in the morning, I
yeah,
struggle with my day-to-day life, but I still carry on with it. I I'm, I am a firm believer in. Now I got to try and word this correctly because there is a lot of people out there who are physically disabled that can't do as much as they would like to. But at the same time, if you've got the chance to be able to try something that you might not even think you would enjoy, why wouldn't you try it?
Exactly.
And this is where, like with the bikes for me, it's when you're only a biker will understand the freedom you get from riding a bike, and it's
Yeah.
a very, very, very amazing feeling. And
Yeah.
you only get that from riding a bike, and it's classed as therapy as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I can encourage more people to find that release in any way that they can, I would love to find out what I could do to help.
That's absolutely like just phenomenal that you normally find when people are going out and impacting the way people you do, there's a big why. And you've got yourself out of the hole by doing what you do.
Yeah. Well,
That's
yeah,
it. Yeah, yeah. And you're literally giving that to other people. And that's powerful and that's amazing. And that's why I love people like you, because you're not keeping it to yourself, going, now I'm keeping this secret.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It
Many
depends
people
on my.
do.
It does depend on my race results. Depends if I keep it secret or not. Yeah.
All right. I don't blame you at all.
Yeah.
So, from the accident, have you got obviously arms been amputated? You mentioned a few other injuries there. Do they still give you problems like on a day-to-day basis?
So it's annoying because my phantom limb and all my nerve injuries really play up when it starts getting cold.
Right, okay.
And then my right arm, it feels like it's exploding when it gets warm.
Right, okay.
So it's really weird. It's like I either got pain in my left or pain in my right. Like
Right,
whatever happens, it's only in the spring and autumn when it feels okay for 5
right.
minutes until it cools down and warms up.
Wow, I've heard of phantom limb before. I didn't know, is that actually, I didn't know it was an actual thing. So does it feel like your arm's still there?
So to begin with, you feel your hand where it was, so it feels like your hand's still there. Um, my hand has telescoped, so my hand feels like it's on the end of my elbow, but it feels like where my stump finishes, it feels like my hand is at the end of my stump basically. So I can still
Right,
feel my thumb and all my fingers. It's very
right.
strange. So
It is.
that's phantom sensation, and I get that's there all the time. But phantom pain is when the nerves send out the signal and doesn't get anything back, and then it goes through its critical
Right.
signals, which goes back to basically the pain you'd get if you lose the limb again, because that's what it's telling the body that you've lost the limb again.
So what
So
can you do
it's
with that?
cry a lot, stamp your feet, and then try and work out what you're gonna do. There's not much you can do really.
I was about to say,
I,
because it's not like you could take painkillers because the pain's
it's not there.
not there. Yeah.
Um, so I found that when that starts going, I have to put it under a blanket or I have to put it under something just to warm it up slightly.
Right,
And
okay.
that's the only thing that I've noticed. But then
Mm.
it could be different for other people. So even though that it might work for me, it might not work for someone else. The one that I found even worse than that pain is a phantom itch.
Oh, I bet that's frustrating.
Yeah, that was actually worse than the phantom pain. I was looking like a toddler that didn't get his present for Christmas, stamping my feet for about I think it was about 2.5 hours, and I
Right.
couldn't work out where I could scratch to try and get to the nerves.
Mm.
So, and it was one of those scratches you really, really need to scratch, and then because you can't scratch it, it gets worse.
Oh, that's just, oh, that is, isn't it? Oh, bless you.
I would
Yeah, I
never
can
wish a
imagine that's,
phantom itch on anyone.
yeah, yeah. No, it sounds horrific, like proper frustrating. Oh, how very odd.
Yeah.
That's just, yeah, yeah, very weird. So
Yeah.
Do you have any back problems or any, like, because you said that you'd had a brain injury as well? Does that give you any problems?
Not massively. I just use it more as an excuse if I forget things. But yeah.
I would use it to your advantage.
Yeah, I like it. It's like when you're playing top trumps, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think I do forget things, but then
Yeah.
I don't know if that's me being me. I don't know if I had that before or it's something that I've only noticed because of being told I got the brain injury.
Yeah.
But I try not to question it too much because it's going well at the moment. So
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for the day that it will come into the forefront of what it is actually affecting.
Yeah.
And I find with my back, I have days where I can't stand up and it
Mhm.
just locks out. And it could be a day and a half I can't get up, and then all of a sudden it'll be fine again.
Yeah.
So it's literally it'll just be a random back attack basically. It might
Yeah.
be for a few hours, it might be for a day, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden it'll go back fine again. It's really
Yeah.
weird. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But
Bless you. They're
yeah,
just
yeah.
still. So what have it told me your big plans for the future? Because with you saying right, it's challenge and next challenge and next challenge. You're going to be one of them big picture thinkers, and I want to know what the big picture is.
So before I was injured was the reason why I wanted to go road racing. So to end up on normal roads and race on the roads.
Right.
So after that, my idea is to try and make it to the Isle of Man TT, which
Right.
is the one of the most famous road races known around the world. Now, when I first went over to the Isle of Man, which is when I went over to watch the Manx Grand Prix, it was in 2013, and that was when I went over with one of the road race army racers to span up for him at the road races as he
Right.
raced the mountain course. Now, that was the same year a gentleman, Chris Mitchell, went round the course. He qualified and raced at the Manx Grand Prix on an SV650, and he did it one-handed,
Right.
which is why I was like, well, if he's gone there, where else could I take it? He said
Mhm.
he's set the benchmark of knowing it's doable. I just now want to go and see if I can go to the TT because
Right.
Chris Mitchell has set the scene for me basically, and that's where my drive comes from. So although
Mhm.
I've done a few things in the background, Chris Mitchell has got the first tick in the box for what I want to do.
He's shown you what's possible, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when is that? Is that how many years is that away that you've got that planned in for?
Um, so at the moment, it is very much how long's a bit of string. You have
Mhm.
to jump through a lot of hoops.
Right.
Um, so I'm I will be applying for the Manx because you have to go to the Manx Grand Prix
Right.
and qualify and race within the Manx Grand Prix and then finish within a set lap time to be able to go to the Isle of Man TT.
Mhm.
Um, I I'm going to be applying for the Manx Grand Prix next year and see what response I get. As I said, my lap times are improving and I'm doing more road races as well. And my uh, my presence within the road racing is actually growing. So more people are knowing about me.
Yeah.
So potentially, yeah, maybe I could be at the Manx Grand Prix next year. I don't know. Only one way to find out because obviously they've got to go through their stringent um, testing for riders to go in the first place.
Right.
So yeah, so it could be in the next 3 years, maybe. It
Yeah.
could be another 8 years. I'm not sure. but I'm just doing what I can and just keep cracking on until I hopefully get a chance.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
find that a lot of races allow people with like disabilities to enter? Because I suppose it is considered, it's dangerous if you are fully able-bodied. So do you find there's some races that don't allow disabled riders to enter, or you're finding now we've moved on in society that it's becoming a lot more acceptable?
It's more inclusive,
Right.
but I would say that with some of the road racing, when I emailed them, I didn't put an entry in. I emailed them before and basically explained who I was, because I know that they're I'm asking to do something which is incredibly dangerous, and
Yeah.
I know I'm turning up with a problem, shall we say. So I didn't want to just put an entry in, they accept it, and then suddenly some one-armed bloke turns up.
Yeah.
So, and the responses that I were getting was very positive, but you did notice that it was kind of like a yes, but no, but yes, but no, but yeah. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like the response I was getting. And it's not the fact that you could tell that they wanted to say it diplomatically, but they didn't want to cause offense.
Yeah.
And um after they looked into me, they said, yeah, not a problem.
Yeah.
Um but that's why I wanted to ask first. It's because I don't see it as discriminative, because I am coming with a limitation.
Yeah.
And also with the road racing, as you said, it's so dangerous. People get killed in it,
Mm,
and that's people with all their limbs.
yeah.
So for them to take a disabled rider on and then say I went off and tried it and then ended up in the back of an ambulance, what would happen to them? Because then the fingers would get pointed at them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that's why I get, they want to say yes, but at the same time they've got to be thoughtful about the risks that go along with it. Because
Yeah.
if they, it's quick for me to point the finger at them to make them let me enter, but then if anything happens to me, all the fingers get pointed at them.
Yeah. It's a difficult one because does their insurance come into it as well? I'm not sure how it works, but they must have like event insurance and things like
Yes,
that.
yes, they
Right.
do. And I don't know if that would affect having a one-armed racer go round on the insurances, because I've got the qualifications to race at that level anyway.
Yeah.
And to get the qualification to race at that level, it doesn't come to everyone, because it's actually
Yeah.
very difficult to get that qualification in the first place,
I was
and you
about
have
to
to
say,
jump through a lot.
you're probably that like, it'll probably be more of a liability having a beginner going around a circuit like that, surely, than
Yes.
right,
So
yeah.
so with the roads that I've been doing, they're called national. So if you have a novice or an intermediate rider, they aren't allowed to go. So
Right.
everyone at the road races that I go to, they've had to jump through the stringent testing basically in the qualification to be able to get to the level of racer that they are,
Yeah.
which also in turn means that when you go out the gate, no one's slow. They're all fast.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite daunting when you go out with 20, 30 other riders and they're all fast. It's like you can't just go, oh, I was going to piddle around with this guy for a minute. That'll be all right. I'll just nip past him. It's just like, no, I got to get on with it.
Yeah. You get you're bound to get nerves before each race, surely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I, I'm pretty much cacking my pants until I get out on circuit.
And
And
then it goes,
every single time that I'm going out, I always think to myself, why am I doing this?
right.
And then the second I leave the gate and then get up on track, oh, I'm in my element. I love it. And then
Yeah.
remember why I still do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one of my friends did say to me, he's a ex-Paralympian. He did say to me, he said, the problem is he goes, it's the second that you stop having butterflies in the stomach is the time that you need to give up.
Yeah.
Because the point that
Absolutely.
you don't feel nervous you're unsafe. And
Yeah.
he said, so if you you don't feel nervous, don't go out.
Yeah, it's like
And I
not being
swore by that.
like complacent and things like
Yeah,
that, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah. I often say as well, it's like I get nervous before every podcast or if I'm teaching a new group or anything. And I always say to people, I'll always get nervous, but I've seen it, if I don't get nervous, it's like I've lost the love for it as well.
yes, yeah, yeah,
Because the nerves kind of make sure that you do your best.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
It also means that you care,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
which is why I do like having nerves. Because even
Yeah.
though I don't like having them, at least it shows that I actually do care about what I'm doing.
Yeah. And it's mixed with excitement, right? So nerves and excitement are very close together in the emotions. So it
Well,
is
yeah, yeah,
exciting.
yeah.
I love that. Just
Yeah.
shows you can get nerves in every industry and whatever you do, and as long as it's important to you, you're going to get nervous.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
I love that. I love that. So, what have you got coming up for the rest of the year? Because, like I say, we've been really busy. We've had to squeeze this podcast in and move it around. So, what have
Yeah.
you been up to recently, and what have you got planned for the rest of the year?
So for the rest of the year, I think was it second, so just 2.5 weeks. I'm going back to Oliver's Mount, which is the road racing up in Scarborough.
Mm-hmm.
I come straight back from that. For the last weekend this month is I'm racing at Castle Combe.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm taking 2 bikes out at Castle Combe, hopefully. So I'm taking one of my bikes out that I'm gonna try and take to the roads with me as well. As soon as I get back from Castle Combe, I'm going to Aberdare Park, which is the Welsh TT over in Wales.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got 2 other races for the end of the year over the next few months after that. So that'll be Tom Fenai, which is south side of Snowdonia, and back to Oliver's Mount for the last race of the year.
Right. That's cool.
So yeah, it's
That's
going to
cool.
be hard going. Yeah,
You really have got one hell of an impressive mindset, mate. It's great. So you're like a breath of fresh air.
yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you.
So my last question to you, I ask everybody this question. Some people struggle with it, other people fly through it. Tell me 3 good things about yourself.
uh, it's actually quite a difficult question,
Is
isn't
it?
it?
Is it? It is a difficult question.
Um, 3 good things about myself. I don't know. I'm really good when I got a helmet on because no one can see my face. That's good. Yeah. Uh, I really don't know. That's actually
I'd
really
definitely say
difficult.
you're determined. I'd definitely say you're a determined person.
Yeah, I suppose that'll be what I'll nick that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You could say it's stubborn, but we'll go with determined, right?
Yeah, it sounds better. Yeah, yeah. Um, I suppose respectful for other people, I suppose. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter which class, creed, background, whatever you have. I've always got the same respect for the same people.
Hmm.
And I always like seeing people succeed, and I like
Yeah.
to see people do well. And which is another reason why I like doing what I do, because
Yeah.
I get to help people achieve what they want to achieve,
Mm.
I suppose.
I've got another question to ask you actually, because one's popped into my head. So I've got to ask you before I let you go.
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
you
yeah.
look back at your accident now, and how do you look back at it? Do you look back and wish it never happened, or are you able to sit down and go, right, this has happened, but it's enabled me to do this?
So the way that I look at it is, A, it's you can't change what's happened.
Mm.
And it's like it's no different to just a really crap paper cut, I suppose. Just obviously this one went a bit deeper. So I wouldn't look back on whatever's happened because it's just part of life. It does
Yeah.
happen. It doesn't happen to everyone, but some people it does. Um, and I've done more since the accident than I would have done if I stayed in the army. And to
Yeah.
be honest, with the way the military is at the moment, I've served abroad, served in plenty of places, done a couple of tours of Afghanistan. It's quiet now.
Mm.
I would have probably left anyway.
Yeah.
So at least I've left with a purpose rather
Yeah.
than left with nothing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, as I said, I've done more since I've lost the arm than I would have done if I'd stayed in.
Yeah.
So, but then it depends on what task I'm doing, depends on how I'd probably answer that. Like if I was tying my shoelaces, I'd prefer to go back to where I was.
Yeah.
But if I'm riding
I'll be with you with the shoelaces, I'm telling you.
yeah, I can't be bothered with them anymore.
Yeah, he has them elastic bands that go on your trainers.
Yeah.
Godsend. The absolute godsend, because you can't do it. But then I've tried to tie a shoelace with one on hand, and it's pretty impossible.
It's doable because I have to do it for my gym trainers, but
You're gonna have to do a video of how you do it, so I can show you.
Yeah, but then it would have to be all like PG and stuff because there's a lot of swearing that goes on to put my shoelaces on.
That's all right. He swears more than I do.
Yeah.
And he's 19 as well, so don't hold anything back.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm gonna hold you to that. I'm gonna be hounding you for the video how to tie a shoelace.
Right. I'll have to make sure I've probably had a few beers before then as well. So yeah.
One of them things where you could do it on your own perfectly fine, but if somebody said, "Right, show me how you do it," you'd be like, "Oh my god."
Yeah. It's not the other one that I found. I had to get dressed up for it was like a business event, and I went and tied my shoelaces on my right boot. Fine. Couldn't do my left boot. So I had to leave it literally until midway through the business event, and I thought, right, I'll give it another go now. Did it fine after that. And it was just like, for God's sake, so I went through most of the day with one boot tied up and one not. And it's just like, I was tempted to ask someone, and I was like, no, don't be that guy. Yeah. But then eventually I came back to it. It's all right. Yeah.
Do you know what? We should challenge everybody that listens to this podcast. I challenge you to, for let's say half an hour, won't be crawling yourself all day, but just use one hand to do everything. You'll be absolutely gobsmacked actually how difficult it is. Because I've tried it many times just to see how it feels to Ben, and it's hard.
Yeah.
So if anybody kind of wants to keep up with what you're doing, or if anybody wants to reach out that's in a similar situation that wants to talk to you, where can they find you?
So yeah, looking on Facebook, it'll be Chris Ganley Racing.
Yeah.
I've got a website as well, which you can get in touch, which is www.chrisganleyracing.com.
Yeah.
I'm on Instagram. I can't remember the tag on that, but I'm sure if you type in Chris Ganley, it will come up with the link.
Yeah.
I would say TikTok, but I don't really use it. So I think that's
I'm the same.
yeah, I don't really know how to use it. So I don't know, I've got to that age, I think.
Yeah. How old are you?
35.
35. You're wet.
Yeah.
You're young to go on TikTok. Apparently, I'm too old. I'm 43, so I'm too old to do TikTok.
You're only a
I
couple
do
years
it. I
older
just
than
go
me.
and press buttons.
Yeah.
Well, I recommend everybody checks Chris out on social media to keep up with what he's doing, because this man just keeps just going, setting challenges and just smashing them and setting another one and just smashing it. I find it hard to keep up with you. But you're an absolute inspiration, and I'm sure you'll be an inspiration to everybody when this podcast goes out. And you're basically showing people what's possible with the right mindset, the right passion, and the right purpose. So thank you for joining me. It's been an absolute honour. And you just, like I say, just keep doing what you're doing, mate, because every time I see your post, it just makes me smile. In a world full of shit, right? You just make me smile.
Thank you
So
very much.
thank you. I will see you soon.
Yeah.